Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream. Today is Friday the 20th of November. Sorry, took a break there to drink some water. We're back to Storms of Rival on the screen, which either is an implication that um, they've given up on their cross promotion with the Shadowverse anime, or that just went its full length, or maybe they got the message back that people really weren't super interested in that content happening. Some other stuff has happened certainly here. In fact, a decent amount of stuff has happened. We've gotten a promotion here that gave us 5 Storm of Arrival card packs. Over here in the play section, we have new story. So there is one new leader. I've pretty much completely run out of any free time to do any of the single player storyline stuff. So uh, here you have a Portalcraft character and a new character being introduced to show off. But at best, these characters in this story are just skins. They're not going to replace the characters that have been the main characters up until this point. Yeah, because let's see, this probably would have been the last time. Nope, that's mixed players too. So I guess this would have been the last time in which you actually selected a character. And yeah, Orisa and Erica and Rowan and Eris, just to name 4 of the 8 hero classes. Those characters can't be replaced in this story. And if you were going to replace them, frankly, you needed to have done it a little bit slower. It would make a lot of sense to kill off Orisa, as she is the person that has like the closest connection to the main bad guy that's introduced in 0 and 1 and then is completely forgotten for a different main bad guy. What was the Purgation is the main bad guy between 2 and at least 9 and probably 10 also. But the main bad guy, or bad girl as it were, in 0 and 1, she could potentially come back, kill off Orisa. They could have a new character replace her as a Forestcraft leader, although then at a certain point it doesn't even really make a lot of sense as far as what is going on. There's certainly a lot of stuff that wouldn't make sense as far as a Forestcraft character who wasn't ever in a forest area where there would have been fairies and elves. Not that it really made that much sense anyways. See if we can retry that. I having network trouble, I'm noticing immediately here. Yep, just complete and total network trouble. See what to do. See if we can accomplish anything. See, and I just worked on my server, and I had managed to get more bandwidth and tweak some settings, but that doesn't inherently mean anything. getting pop-ups from Steam, so Steam thinks like it's getting some internet connections. There we go. So maybe at that point. Yeah. Maybe at this point we'll get something going. See if I can maybe identify this real fast. And potentially stop it. I'm thinking maybe my servers, I'm now trying to back up things. Maybe it's taking up just too much bandwidth on the internal network. And so I just shut down all the servers, as it were. And maybe that'll fix it. YouTube chat now has a pinned chat message, so I can put that original message and pin it. I guess the question then becomes, how many pinned chat messages can you have? Just one? Can you have two? Can you have three? Do I need to potentially rewrite how the pinned chat messages work? Does the pinned chat message immediately become ignored by the vast majority of people, as it is? Let's go into the shop now. For the accountability section, here we go. 1 legendary guaranteed if you spend 1,000 crystals, so you can't do that. But we do have the add-ons, which this is what I knew was going to happen eventually, so I think it did make a lot of sense to sit on 10 tickets. Maybe it doesn't really make any more sense to go more than that, but so this should be the expansion to this expansion, which also means we're probably are closer to an expansion than I really was expecting. But yeah, I played a couple more episodes of Disgaea. I could not find anything I liked about Disgaea. It is just too old of an RPG, too grindy of an RPG. Like, literally, the last level in the first episode of 13 episodes, and they definitely are written like anime episodes of a TV anime series more than a video game episode. But the last level there just was incredibly terrible. I died. It gave me a credits specifically around losing that one episode, and it made me sit through all the credits. You couldn't skip it. And then it let me go for round 2, as it were. And so then I had to grind through the 4 levels in that first episode outside of the tutorial a second time, and in doing the grinding and upgrading my equipment. And I think, frankly, the equipment is probably more the issue for the beginning of Disgaea, where you really should just upgrade all the equipment you can have and have at least 10 characters, but then don't bother to make any more than 10 characters, because you can only put 10 characters on the field. And every single turn in Disgaea just takes feels like 7 minutes potentially to do one turn. It's not 7 minutes, it's probably 2 minutes, but certainly it felt way too much. It took way too long, it felt way too grindy, and the core gameplay conceit just wasn't there. And while I may like the penguin mascot characters, all right. And while I may be willing to appreciate the weird fetishized way in which they draw all the male and female characters showing a lot of belly and a lot of the characters having extremely skinny and one character actually sunken in stomach, um, that definitely is not a lot. That's not enough to catch my interest. It's a fairly basic generic anime plot, at least for the first episode. And then I looked at the second episode for the first level of that, and it seems like it's still going to just be a simplistic generic anime plot. It definitely feels like if you had made an anime around Disgaea, it would just be one of those anime series that airs one season and then is not watched by anybody and is quickly forgotten about. So that really taught me a lot, though, having spent probably about 6 hours of a 45-hour game. I also looked at the achievement, and less than 40% of the players ever beat even the first episode. I think probably if you do manage to use the equipment to get to like chapter 4 is what I saw as a strategy guide. At that point, characters start leveling up. There is definitely a point at some point where you start getting massive levels of increased experience because the final character you play at is like level 4,000 and I got to level 6. But I didn't get anywhere close to that point, obviously. So that should be an even 20 packs that we just opened. So, I don't even think there's a particularly effective way at this point to even see the new cards. If you did get new cards, because they don't put them at the front like they would Hearthstone. I think Hearthstone did that. I don't think Magic the Gathering Arena did that. So after playing Disgaea 1 and just quitting it, technically a rage quit, not really that rageous. That did allow me to go to see, like, this is new and this is new. That did let me go to a point where I could look at my wish list and say, well, these 3 other or 4 other Disgaea games that I have on my wish list need to get removed because I made a decision based on the reviews of others, and now I have better information in that I played the game myself. And in all fairness, Disgaea right now is on sale for like $2. Disgaea 1 is. So at $2, I didn't really waste a lot of money to learn something there. And I kind of am planning on trying to jump into a more action-y, more 3D, less PS2 era JRPG. So there's some other JRPGs that we may try, but this may just be the first domino in a series where I just go, all right, well, I have a decent number of JRPGs I can try and play, and I may just find out that I don't like any of them, regardless of their slight changes. Like, because I definitely know the Disgaea RPG style, which was very tactical and very slow, is not for me. But I may find out that even a turn-based 3D JRPG may not catch my attention enough, or I may very well make, in my mind, special exemptions for a turn-based 3D JRPG if it's a really well-known popular one, but I may not be willing to do that for other games. For instance, I have a lot of the Neptunia games, I think I have pretty much all of them because of a Humble Bundle or something else. And same publisher, a developer for that, for the Neptunia games, made a game called Fantasy Fencer F or something like that. And so I may not be willing to actually play all the way through Fantasy Fencer F, but I might be willing to play the Neptunia game. One, because the Neptunia characters are cute anime girls, and I don't see so many cute anime girls in Fantasy Fencer F. But two, because there's a long-running series of Neptunia games. Although, if you do a deeper dive, particularly in the Neptunia games, it's actually, there's a shorter running series that's been rebooted and remade several times. Yeah, there's not a good system here. Not a good system at all. Of course, we don't know what we're missing either in this view. Yeah, so nerd tip, as I worked on this over a little bit, but not really anything to write home about. Mostly I just was setting it up to start downloading and just replacing things. And there was a brief thought certainly about what files do I need that are publicly available versus what files did I have previously, because there's some room there for potentially filtering that down and saying, yeah, I don't need these anymore, or that wasn't some of them were ideas of things that I was going to need and really don't need anymore, or never did need. Yeah. See, we can see there's a decent amount of cards that we're missing. Would it be worth it to potentially try and craft all of, let's see, like 4,000 liquefied there? So if I was to go here and say, give me all the bronzes, and if I was going to say, craft me 3 of everything. Is there a way to do that easily? Like, if you... Anime cards can't be created. Which, why can't they be created? What are Sears globes then for? Use Sears globe to animate. So that's how you do it. You have to go to the non-animated version of them. Okay. So I may very well have 3 of everything that's a non-animated version of something. Let's see. Is there a way to go to all here? Maybe see any temporary. I mean, you could do that certainly, but yeah. So I have like this, which Tempest of the Gods. Where did that card come from? Wise Merriman. Yeah, so apparently either that card got changed or somebody's adding other cards. And see, I think I probably do just want to craft 1 of everything I have so I could potentially see the art, even though the art has just been changed and more censored. And all odds point to it being more censored. Oh, but I also worked on my router, and it turned in the quality of service. And I was running, I installed and ran this command line speed tester. And I was looking at it and trying different settings. And apparently, even though it really shouldn't matter at all, having the ports set to the maximum setting in DDWRT drastically increased the amount of speed there. When they were on standard should be, I think, somewhere around, they're given somewhere around 50 to 100% of the bandwidth, according to whether they actually have any competition. And apparently the calculations and the algorithms are just not accurate there. So I set each port to the maximum setting, and then drastic increases appeared. So as far as specifically labeling ports on a DDWRT QoS page, quality of service page, set that to maximum, otherwise you are going to bottleneck yourself more than you intend to. Inherently, that is what quality of service is trying to bottleneck yourself as much as possible so that you don't get throttled by the ISP that then will potentially slow you down for a lot longer. But there's definitely problems with all the algorithms. It's very hard to just do a quick Google and say, is this algorithm for congestion control the right algorithm to use out of the 2 or 3 that are available? And then there's also a collusion algorithm that also is very questionable. It's just like whether or not that's which algorithm is the right one to use, and no good straight answers, and that's almost certainly why there are several different algorithms available, is because there is no good straight answer. But for a standard person using a Wi-Fi router, there probably should be a default one that is fairly obvious. Alright, let's do one more page here. Otherwise, I'm gonna sit and go through like hundreds of these to use up all of the vials, and I think that would be fairly easy to do, because these bronzes are only costing 50, which just means that I probably could have gone through this and crafted a bunch of things last week as well as this week. See. Alright, yeah. So, more pages. Lots more pages. This is probably exactly where I stopped last time I tried to do this. Just to have one of everything. A lot of these cards certainly I would get if I just chose to, say, open a single pack of every expansion, which is a decent thought to do next expansion. Next time there is an expansion that comes out, it's just make a special effort. We have another win 6 ranked matches to get the Ultimate Coliseum card pack ticket, which is an older expansion, I believe. And then one private match, I should replace that, but I can't. So we just need to win. Win, win, win. Alright. We have a decent amount of news. I'm not going to say we don't. And I'm still in a situation where sitting too long could be painful, and I'm still seeing that my network does seem like it just wants to crap out, and I can't blame my server at this point because everything's been shut down. Hmm. And I'm not sure it was that in the first place.
Okay. No more crying.
But yeah, all kinds of setups. One of the things my server does is it runs an instance of a Dropbox from your own home called Nextcloud, formerly called OwnCloud. And OwnCloud is still available, but it's not been updated in a while. No, it's been basically abandoned. And one of the things about Nextcloud is I've lost my train of thought. What was I gonna say about Nextcloud? Oh, yeah. It uses a standard called WebDAV to move files around, or at least a lot of clients that integrate with it do. But it doesn't, much like Dropbox, it doesn't have like a really good system integrated to do a full computer backup or even large amounts of files of backup. It works it works fairly well for small files and small amounts of files. I wouldn't think you'd have really any problem with a properly configured Nextcloud server for a terabyte of data, even. But if you start saying, well, I want to back up every single thing that that's on a PC, a Windows 10 PC, if you just are gonna move giant files like that, there's a software called Duplicati that it's a backup software that theoretically is supposed to work, but I've never been able to get it to work, and I'll give it another try. But even Windows itself doesn't want you really to back up the entirety of its computer. They want to force you into a situation where you'd have to reinstall Windows, and while that is probably the better solution, nowadays it's also the more irritating solution that takes longer and requires more configuration. There's just so many settings in Windows, even as Microsoft is trying to get rid of a lot of settings in Windows, there's still way more settings in Windows that can be tweaked and configured, and I think kind of need to be tweaked and configured.
Why are you here?
Okay. Yeah, I just think my bandwidth is terrible. Just think my bandwidth is terrible. Maybe I did set a setting there on the router. Oh, I also messed with my router and finally got it. I got it to back up its files to my server also, since that would be relatively useful in case the way the router saves everything is it's saving it to flash memory, but there's no guarantee that flash memory is the best quality flash memory out there, so there's a decent chance that you would there's a decent chance that at any point it would write to the flash memory and then realize that it has corrupted the flash memory and just potentially ruin the whole router or erase everything. So having some backups is helpful. Off-site or off-device backups. There's some other things I certainly could do with the router, like, but I don't know if adding more features to a relatively underpowered computer is a wise move. And that a lot of stuff is better just to be left alone. And you don't want to get too fancy with the router. The router only needs to do things that are on the edge of your network. It doesn't need to do things that are inside your network. And often it is a decision IT people have to make is, do I want to have this feature running from the edge of the network, or do I want to have it running from a server inside the network? And usually the answer is server inside the network, but on a rare occasion, edge makes a little bit more sense. And maybe you just build a system where half the things are on one computer and half are on the router. That way, if one thing breaks, the others don't. Like, clearly and obviously, the router has to do the networking stuff. You wouldn't want to set up an internal server to do DNS servering without the router being at least capable of taking over if that internal server went down. Alright, moving on, back to video games. We have a game here called Dead Warrior Tribute, which looks like it's a little pixely black and white hack and slash side-scrolling game. It's 59 cents English. It's not good enough to be put on the fall list. But it also doesn't look like a total piece of garbage, which it's always nice to see something that's only a slightly low effort game compared to the vast numbers of extremely low effort games we see listed. Next we have a game on Steam called Arthur's Revenge, which looks like it's a platformer 2D game. It looks just a little bit repetitive here. You see enemies and coins, and that seems to be about it. It doesn't seem to show that there's any kind of boss or other abilities. It's $1.79 English. Yeah, and again, just not quite good enough. My standards are going to start off high today, apparently. And nice UI, it does match everything. Let's see. And I keep getting quiet. I think I do want to mention this, and this is basically a YouTuber just complaining about not having enough views, so take that warning. The average watch time for the last video I did on Wednesday was 76 seconds. And inherently, whenever I see a metric like that, I don't know what message you're supposed to take from that other than your content sucks and you should just give up. I mean, that's about all you can take a message from that, because inherently there's no point, even if I am spacing out and half asleep, which at the moment that's probably exactly what I'm doing. There's almost certainly never 76 seconds where I am not talking, but also there's never a point in 76 seconds where anybody would have heard me make a complete statement. Like, you could get a complete sentence out of 76 seconds, a sentence 2 or 3 even, but you're not going to get a whole idea there. Also, if I don't take it personally, and it's just that people want to see Hearthstone, they're probably, I'm not Hearthstone, but Shadowverse, you're probably not going to see me play Shadowverse and stay on the Shadowverse screen for a full 76 seconds. And so maybe that's the part that people don't like, is that I pan away. That could be it, certainly. This. And then this. Then end the turn. So yeah, 76 seconds. I don't keep 76 seconds on any web peak screen like this. This game is called Sword of Destiny, which in the actual gameplay video that I was watching, it does seem like it is a platforming game, but it seems like there aren't too many enemies to actually fire at you. It is visually polished a little bit better than the last one of these we saw, but still not really seeing enough of a game. Remember, Rogue Legacy 2 is coming out fairly quickly. This is $1.39 English and Turkish. Is this the same developer? No. Wow. Just two very similar games coming out at the same time. Okay. Play this. And then play this. And then play this. And then this. And then play this. And end the turn. Sword of Destiny is still not really good enough to make it to the follow list, though. Next, we have a game on Steam called Ascent, which looks like it's probably a physics game more than anything physics platformer, where you're playing as a ball, just trying to get higher and higher, getting over it with an A40 type game. $3.99 English. This one's particularly expensive compared to the last two games we've seen. I could talk about YouTube potentially putting ads. We kind of need to see what they really do here. There definitely are some questions, certainly, as to why does YouTube all of a sudden have ads to play, that they would bother to put ads on non-monetized channels, non-monetized content creators, people who particularly are specifically wanting to create this. Like, first of all, they've opened the door to a lot of people being even more frustrated with YouTube and Google in general, and just calling for an alternative to be created once again. Secondly, they've potentially opened themselves up to lawsuits that may not go anywhere, but I think probably should be levied anyways. You also opened yourself up to the very obvious statement that I think a lot of YouTubers are going to start telling people, is that, hey, I don't care, use an ad blocker. Like right now, as a person not in the YouTube partner program, it does not matter to me one bit if you use an ad blocker to block ads on YouTube, because it's not getting any money to me, and now it's not even getting money to content creators, at least guaranteed wise. But again, we don't know if YouTube's going to do this to the occasional video that gets 1 million views but is not monetized because it's like the only video that content creator has ever uploaded, and thus we don't know if this is some weird, stupid backwards way of them fixing their algorithm, so that they could say, well, now these small YouTube content creators are going to start getting views and their videos are going to start getting suggested again because we're going to roll ads on them. That's really, really dumb. On top of this, for YouTube content creators, there's a decent suggestion that if you just don't want your YouTube channel ever monetized, you probably could still just mark everything as targeted towards kids under 13, and I don't see any way that YouTube is going to get around the law there and start showing targeted ads there. Maybe this is in some weird way the beginnings of them creating non-targeted ads so that they could show ads to kids under 13, because that's not it was never a situation where YouTube can't show ads to kids under 13. It was that YouTube can't track kids under 13, and their solution really displayed a dishonest explanation as to what was going on in the form of their solution. But yeah, this all may be nothing. YouTube may decide to back down on it, and frankly then all this drama will have been successful, but we haven't really seen YouTube do anything like that. And, at the end of the day, you have to say this is Susan Wojcicki's fault, whether it was her idea or not, because she's the one that's been in charge of YouTube. She's been the one that's made it less of a successful product. She's the one that's in charge at the moment, so Boop has to roll uphill. Although, frankly, I think almost everybody that works at YouTube is an idiot and should be replaced. At least the business people. I don't know, maybe the programmers, maybe a few of the programmers know what they're doing. I'm not sure if I believe that, for as often as features are poorly designed and thought out on YouTube. But really, there's not a lot you can say until we start seeing how it gets implemented. I had predicted that a lot of channels were going to get banned or kicked out of the YouTube partner program once the US election has happened. I think this is even crazier than that, but I still kind of predict that that's more than likely going to happen, is we're going to see some massive exoduses of content creators as they just get banned. And that's the bigger question, is really where YouTube got these commercials from. Unless YouTube just plans on airing commercials for other Google products, and I don't think Google even has that many Google products for that to make sense. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called The Dark Method, which looks like a horror first-person shooter. It might be something. It's early access. It requires VR. It's $24.99. English only. Didn't realize this was VR. Alright, well, put this on the fall list, but I think, frankly, the graphics don't look good enough for VR. I would have been able to allow a standard game to have slightly ugly graphics, but when you're talking VR, they need to be pretty pristine, otherwise it's gonna come as a shock to your face as you're trying to watch the content. Alright, evolve.
It won't be long now. You won't get away with this.
Do this.
Let's play. Stop.
Do that.
Years still turn.
Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Grand Blue Fantasy versus shipments and digital sales top 4500,000. So, Scramble Fantasy, a fighting game? Yes, it is. That's, I think, the really nicely animated fighting game that looks like an anime or that it was hand drawn, but actually isn't. This.
Are the brightest stars in the sky.
Right, and then this,
Let's play.
and then this. See, next we have a game on Steam called Jet Pin, which looks like it's a pinball game. We've seen a pinball game where it was kind of set in nature, but in that game that I'm thinking about, you control the character that kind of let you move things around. It was very Sonic Spinball influenced. This looks more standard with just weird artistry here. And it doesn't look particularly interesting, frankly. $4.99, English full audio. This is a real challenge. Get to the top of the floor and escape the flood. Yeah, I just don't see an expertise here that I would expect from a pinball game.
Other dimensions beckon.
There we go. So I'm gonna not bother to put that on the follow list either. I'm being very picky today, and I'm glad for it, frankly. Gamatsu has an article. Love Kami Divinity Stage for Switch launches November 26th. This looks to me like a visual novel romance game. Here we have a fairly large busted lady. Let's see. Yeah, Nintendo hasn't really backed down from... Yep, here we've got some more scantily clad lewd poses of characters. Hasn't really backed down from the Japanese kind of adult games. Yeah, from Moe Novel. Is Moe Novel the developer, or is that just what they are calling Moe games now, or Moe art style games? This, that, and that. I'm gonna watch this video, but because it's a Nintendo thing, I'm not gonna show it. Also because there's a decent chance of it not being YouTube family friendly. And see, that's the other danger certainly with something like this is that you definitely, if YouTube is going to start randomly putting videos on people's videos, I feel like they are intentionally putting themselves back into a situation where something not family friendly gets monetized by YouTube, and at that point it's totally on YouTube's fault. They can't blame a content creator if they put an ad on their video without doing the due diligence that they wouldn't actually ever do. And undoubtedly anything that is going to get a random video commercial on it, ad on it, will secretly already have been pre-approved by the algorithm to be monetized. But yeah, that still won't be enough for some advertisers.
Time for me to prove myself.
This one's for my family.
Yeah. And see, we're not even at that point. Like the real controversy for YouTube and ads will almost certainly happen somewhere around January, February, March time frame, because every year the advertisers renegotiate at that time. Every year they try to get some kind of controversy to happen so that they can renegotiate the prices they're paying for the number of views. And with 2020 just being so bad for everybody, but businesses also, you're going to see a ton of advertisers try to renegotiate for YouTube next year. Plus, the competition will just be huge and has always been huge against non-new media sources. So every local TV station, newspaper, radio station will also try to pile on and attack YouTube. So making these announcements now just so you can start doing it in 2021 is crazy.
Let's play. Let's play.
Moving on, Gematsu has an article here. Earth Defense Force World Brothers Abilities and Specials gameplay. So this is a weird looking Earth Defense Force game. The Earth Defense Force series being fighting giant bugs, and typically they're not very good games. Seems like the creator keeps trying to make them, but they never are particularly successful at making them. Yeah. At the very least, I keep talking about the YouTube thing, but at the very least, if they were smart, they would have found some narrative, some idea that would have had some demographic, somebody side with YouTube. But there's nobody that can side with YouTube on this. At best case scenario, you have people calling for a calm or saying let's not blow it out of proportion. But everybody else, every viewer, every content creator, everybody involved other than YouTube is obviously going to be unhappy with the idea that YouTube is going to run ads and pocket all the money. It's not like they weren't pocketing most of the money in the first place. And were this any other industry besides an IT industry, a new computer industry, YouTube content creators would be considered employees, and this would be considered straight up theft / slavery, in which you're making your employees work for free on a condition of them staying your employee. And don't get me wrong here, it literally is that situation. Like, I'm not being hyperbolic to say it is straight up unpaid labor, which is basically slavery. But yeah, because the way it's phrased is, if you continue to use the service, which is to say, unless you go and completely delete your account and then allow them to delete all of your videos, however many you put it up there. For me, over 8,000 videos. There is no way to opt out of them putting ads on your videos. If you privated it and just shared the links privately, it still could potentially have ads on it, from what would be my guess. Or that would be unpublishing it, actually. But even if you just privated it, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody was using YouTube to just put up personal family videos, which was one of the legitimate uses of YouTube, was to put up your personal family videos and have only you see it, and it would just be a private video. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up putting ads in front of your own videos in that fashion.
The power of nature.
The blueprint.
Moving on, we have a game on stream called Fall Streak Requiem for My Homeland, which looks like a visual novel. I kind of like this art style. I've seen a few animes that kind of look like that, but then this seems pretty standard in its art style, and this seems to be pretty just pencil sketched. And then you've got a background image, and you've got a pretty generic menu here, which makes me kind of think that this might be a Chinese visual novel. $4.49 English only. Well, maybe it's not a Chinese one. Maybe it's just a Western one trying to look like. And here you have that same kind of deceptive practice for a visual novel that shouldn't be done, where you have an animated trailer when there clearly won't be anything but stationary images. Yep. And see, the thing about art styles is, well, that might make some sense in the form of watching a stationary concept, something like a anime series, movie, or TV episode. That's a very passive action style, so I could see that working for having a unique art style, convincing people to watch something like that. But when you have to sit there and read, and when it's more than 2 hours long, like most visual novels are, the art style, while it can be a nice addition, it can't be the only thing it's got going for it. Here we have a smartphone game called Sakura Kakume Hanasaku Otome Taichi, which is like cherry blossom something young maiden something. This is the one where it's young maidens in robot suits, I guess. Again, I'll hit play and see if I can discern anything more from the trailer. Yep, it might be a RPG cell phone game. Yes, it is tagged RPG. I'm seeing a bunch of anime girls in 3D model form, all with their own robot suits. Looks very fancy and very animated, but again, the actual game is probably not going to be that animated. Let's see. I'm gonna reload the page on the chat just to experiment more than anything. Chat's disabled for this live stream. Yeah. Try that again. So yeah, I don't even know if I'm streaming. It says I'm live, but who knows? Like, he could have started a whole nother live stream with a different link. Hey, if I play this,
May the forest be at peace.
then I play this,
The stars pale beside me.
and then this.
Let's play.
See, here we have a game on Steam called Candy Bear 2, which obviously is nothing. Just a low effort arcade clone. $3.99. Even if this was 69 cents, I'd say it was overpriced. But that is particularly overpriced. Let's just go around and play randomly. Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam called Rydo Original Complex, which I haven't seen anything about a game like this. It seems like it is a kind of fast-paced hack and slash platforming. It says it's a platformer. I don't know if it really is that much of a platformer. Interesting. Interesting to see a game that even has this level of polish and not have seen a single advertisement for it. It's not like it's an old game getting re-released. It's $13.49, English, Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. Well, we finally found one that goes on the follow list.
I'll burn you alive.
Here we have a game called Tokai Jakaki no Apocalypse, launching April 22nd in Japan, 2021. So, something the apocalypse in visual novel, obviously. Probably a young maiden visual novel, considering how many anime guys are on it. I keep losing momentum, probably because I'm losing my breath, but yeah, just I'm worse for wear. Even though I did sleep some before today's stream, I still feel very tired because I was up probably 20 hours over the course of the last 2 days. And I definitely do think I'll probably just take a nap after the stream. More and more, it seems like nap time is becoming mandatory. I don't know if I ever napped when I was a kid, like a real young kid. Probably. I imagine all young kids are forced into it whether they want to or not. But I don't think that was anything that became a habit after the age of 5 or 6.
Too slow.
So weak.
Too slow.
I definitely know that there was a certain level at which I wouldn't really sleep if anybody was around me. Just felt like my animalistic self-preservation instincts were probably higher than most, and it felt like it was not safe to potentially fall asleep when any other people that I don't trust around me. And the list of people I probably trusted was very short. Moving on, we have a Switch game here called Lover Pretend, launching March 25th in 2021. Clearly there was a company that listed a bunch of visual novels. And yeah, again, here we probably have an otome novel here, in that we see a female character, although who knows if this bottom half is the top half of this character. I think it is. And then you have 4 male characters. Probably a waste of time to watch every single one of these trailers, particularly for visual novels.
Is that a human? I'm done sticking. I told you to
Do
leave.
that.
Fitting end.
Do that.
Call me short.
Pick up your sword.
At your service.
So weak.
And the internet's down again. Well, this time it can't really be me, can it? Or at least it's not the server. If it was something on the router. But see, even then, that was down too short. Yeah, I just feel like the internet is just getting worse and worse for everybody. Yep. I did notice when I was messing with my router, when my router goes down, and this is how all Wi-Fi routers go, you might be able to get a weak signal from somebody else's router from far away. So I saw somebody's router wasn't even encrypted. Like, it was a completely unlocked Wi-Fi network, and I'm like, oh man, people shouldn't be doing that. I have thought to myself, maybe I should just connect to the router, to the unencrypted Wi-Fi network, and then go and see if I can log into the router by the default password. Because if they're not competent enough to encrypt it, that probably means they've never even gone to the Wi-Fi router setup page. But then I wasn't really sure what I should do there. I mean, I can turn on the encryption and require a password, but then that will just cause that person to potentially have to call an IT person in. Yeah, and so if you're trying to be helpful and not just leave it vulnerable to somebody who wouldn't be helpful, I don't know how you fix that, really. What you could probably do, now that I think about it, if you're going to do anything, because at a certain level, what you're doing is going to be called hacking by the person involved regardless. You could, if you can log in by a default user and password to the router, then you would at that point could get the model and you could get like the model of the hardware, and that would be something that most people would not have a problem figuring out, whether it was like a D-Link or a Cisco or something like that. And then you could set the password potentially to that, but then the only way you could send that information is to change the SSID, which unless they allow for 2 SSIDs on the router, which not all routers do, you still would have a problem there, because you need the SSID to stay what it is now, or they won't be able to find and connect to it. So, yeah, that was a interesting thought, but then once my router came back on, I couldn't see the other one, so. And there is a small possibility that it was literally just a honeypot, a trapped device intentionally set up to catch people connecting to it.
You must die.
So I imagine not, but you never know. It is the open door concept, I suppose. Like, if you are in a neighborhood and you happen to see that your neighbor's front door is open, do you call the police and potentially involve the police, and in the United States in particular, also at that point potentially have them shot because the police misconstrued the situation? Do you ignore it? Do you ignore it for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days? Do you go over there and shut the door for them? Do you yell in from the front door and see if anybody's at the house? Do you potentially, if you can lock it with, do you lock it and then potentially lock people out of their own house? Although usually on the front door there's no way to set up a door so that it can lock itself. Um,
How's everyone doing tonight?
like, you really don't have any business going inside someone's house if the front door's open. Even if they fell. If somebody fell and died.
You wouldn't.
But if you heard somebody screaming for help, then of course you'd want to go inside of it. And a lot of that really just does come down to how much of a good neighbor do you want to be versus how much do you want to just mind your own business, or how much of a busybody you want to be. A Wi-Fi router is definitely not as dangerous a situation as a unsecured, password-free Wi-Fi router. It is not anywhere as bad as a front door being wide open. It's kind of ridiculous that any Wi-Fi router would even let you have a password-free setup. Like, there should be like no way to do that at this point. I think pretty much there is no secure way to have no password, because you cannot really use any of the encryption on the Wi-Fi stuff if that's the case. Well, regardless, I'm just rambling here. Here we have a game called Dwarves and Dungeons, which looks like you must build a boat, basically. And the predecessor, 10 million. And after playing 10 million and you must build a boat, I don't think I really want to play any more games like that where it's a match 4 game with some RPG mechanics. This is $2.99 Chinese. Doesn't look terrible. But I would say play 10 million and you must build a boat first before playing this game. And then if you still are enjoying that gameplay style, you might consider that game. Next, we have a game on Steam called Melvor Idol, which is some kind of idol game. Looks like it might be fantasy based somewhat, or maybe even a little bit Minecrafty. Early access for an idle game, $7.49 for an idle game, English only. That is too many strikes for an idle game. Let's see. Gamatsu has the Famitsu sales being updated. Let's see. Now they have Call of Duty Black Ops at the top with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and then Sakuna of Rice and Ruin. There's a decent number of PS4 games I imagine are going to come out now since PS4 is available in Japan. But I would say PS4 and PS5 games are probably going to be around a fourth as good as they were in the PS4's times the PS5 sales, because while the PlayStation 5 did sell 103,000, if I remember what I saw, by this same first week the PlayStation 4 had sold 300,000. And yes, the Xbox One X and One S only sold 25 units in total. The Series X and Series S here are actually competing very nicely with the PlayStation 5 Digital Edition, which I guess if you combine those two together, you'd still have the PlayStation 5 being very high. But you're seeing the PS4 is getting less sales. The new 2DS LL, the PlayStation 4 Pro, only sold 71. The new 3DS LL. Yep. I swear, if I get banned because my internet's just messed up, from this the same way Magic banned me, I think at that point I'm gonna have to really think about doing a different streaming schedule, or just not streaming at all. Like we might go to just like weekend streams or something, because this is just getting really ridiculous. And does anything want to load? This is getting really, really ridiculous. Let's keep on playing. So here we have a TechRaptor article. A box of Pokemon cards sells for 300,000 at auction, which I very much wouldn't be surprised if I do have a box of Pokemon cards. Now, are they first edition Pokemon cards, or did somehow I get into second, third edition? Kind of depends on how quickly they went to second or third edition, because I definitely feel like I've seen having boxes of this. Maybe I don't have a complete box, maybe it's not in any real shape, and certainly I'm not gonna go through my entire Nintendo collection to try and find it, but let's see. Unopened first edition Pokemon cards were sold for a record-breaking $300,000. Okay. In September, one was $198,000. Interesting. Well, that definitely is real money. At a certain point, it gets hard to justify what would clearly just be called stupidity on my part, to not bother to go and look and see if I have that. But frankly, I'm still not gonna do it, because like I would estimate probably my Nintendo collection is somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000, if it's worth anything at all. Which it may not be worth much at all. It may all be very damaged and in my garage, and it may all be in terrible condition due to me mishandling it. So it is slightly shocking to see some small evidence or some small hint that it would be more than 50,000. And certainly I was putting a estimate on it when I said 50, and that was a exaggerated estimate. I didn't think I'd actually ever be able to sell it. Of course, you could also go the other route with that, and you could say $300,000. Well, it is real money and a large sum. It's not as game-changing or life-changing sum as you might think. It can certainly help out in a lot of cases, but even if you won a lottery and got $1 million, $1 million can easily be blown through and won't guarantee that you would be completely healthy and happy and taken care of financially for the rest of your life. Healthiness and happiness not really being directly connected to money, although having money tends to allow people to afford to be healthy and happy. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called SMIB Cure, which seems to be some kind of game where you control a robot to solve some cube puzzles. I don't like the visual aspect of it more than anything. It's just very rough, very repetitive tile sets, dark in some of the screenshots. Early access, $1.39. No reason for that game to be early access. 25 achievements, and then there's bundles here to try and sell you more games. Let's see.
I see to the ends of the world.
Prophecy of Doom.
Bop and roll.
No!
Next, we have a game on Steam called Tyvis, which looks to me like it's a very simplistic puzzle platforming game with maybe some loot collection going on, maybe some crafting. Early access $2.39 English. We are seeing a lot of early access games. Let's see. It's really gonna load.
Most impressive. Most impressive. How could there be a future like this?
Let's see. Let's do that.
Lightning storm.
Bop and
And
roll.
then that. Twitch has some games, IRL, and music directories as a way of trying to promote more discoverability amongst Twitch streamers, which also we can see here's an ad for Hulu that they are putting first and foremost. Discoverability has been a problem on Twitch in the sense that you would very often see just the most popular games being played by the most popular streamers, and even if it was a very popular game, the number of viewers watching the second most prevalent or popular streamer was way less views than the first most popular streamer. And what they're really saying is that they're just going to have categories similar in style to what YouTube has had for at least 2 years, if not 4 or 5. So that they're really not announcing anything that's amazingly smart design or anything. It's things they should have done for a long time. And Twitch has constantly had this issue where it needed to do a lot of things and it's just not gotten around to doing it. Here we have a game on Steam called Expellis Arena, which is a space player versus player shooting game from the looks of it. It looks kind of nicely polished, but I don't like space games. I don't like asteroids shooting games. Although I really wouldn't call this an asteroids clone. $7.99 single player, so it's just single player. Like that does feel more polished than just asteroids. Let's see. Subtract the cost of a card.
I'll fry you to a crisp. Stop!
Gamma Sutra has an article here. Roblox moves towards an IPO, discloses revenue and net losses for the last 3 years. So Roblox, even though it seemed like it was a very popular game, or people were talking about it a lot, I'm not sure it actually ever was really that popular. It is clearly not a successful game, and I think Roblox also was a fairly monetized game, or is a fairly monetized game. I think there's microtransactions and things in it. I suppose the thing that could be convincing people to stop watching after 76 seconds could be the network. That would be a convenient thing to believe, certainly, is to say, oh no, it has nothing to do with the content you're creating, it just has to do with the fact that you are completely and totally out of bandwidth.
Shall I walk with you along your favorite path?
Okay.
The light will not go out.
Alright, so this one is now set to win in a couple turns.
This match is mine. My bolts are too fast. I'll fry you to a crisp. No! Stop!
But I'm pretty much set to win in the next turn. Here we have a game on Steam called Granularum. I suppose that's how you pronounce it. Seems to be literally just this one scene though, with a slight changes. Early access $10.99. That is way too expensive. Seems like it might be a horror game. Like, if I saw more, I wouldn't be upset around this art style, but I don't really see more.
It's impossible to change fate, and yet
There's something over here, and there's like a girl over here. So it says large sofa, TV, and 2 people. That's can't be right, because then what's this if not the head of a child? And what's that? Yeah. So some weirdness there. Some 11 serpents. Summon Medusa Lana instead.
let's put the icing on this cake. Making me worried like that?
Can we do anything? Can attack up to 3 turns. Interesting.
Maybe, just maybe, this magic will help.
Okay.
It'll work this time, maybe.
This
Stop! I'll fry you to a
and
crisp.
that. See, I think we're probably gonna lose here unless she can't play a card to destroy this, because this one summons Seraphalaphus Glory B, which I think that card says last words win the match.
Let us conclude.
So it's an 8 play point Havencraft amulet. So she actually needs to destroy 2 things.
I have lost.
So he did lose. Alright. Open Critic has an article here. Kate Bishop will join Marvel Avengers next month. I don't think too many people particularly care about Marvel Avengers. I'm not even sure I can recognize who Kate Bishop is. Like, yeah, I don't even know who she is.
That should do it.
See, we've done half of the weekly limit by Friday, which goes to show you really would have to win a lot more than I am. Let's see. Here we have a game on Steam called Charge, which looks like it's a puzzle game, sort of around electricity. It doesn't look interesting enough though. $3.19, English, Chinese, Russian. Again, if that's a cheap Chinese or Russian game though, it's probably better than a lot of the others we've seen. Here we have a game on Steam called Staggering Through the Dark, which is tagged as an RPG. I think it's probably a visual novel. I suspect it's a Chinese visual novel. English is not supported, $8.79, Chinese only. So many screenshots are not loading. But yeah. That doesn't look like anything. Do that. Do that. Next we have a game on Steam called Theo's World, which I thought I had fixed this, or I tried to fix this with the screenshots loading in, but we're getting actually broken symbols, which we usually don't even get that much. This is an early access game, $2.39, English, Portuguese, Brazil. Looking at the bottom parts of this, I can fairly easily tell that there's no game here. Not of anything that's worth mentioning. Here we have a game called Odd Adventure of Chubb, color 23U, which definitely seems like it's just random garbage. $1.99, English and Russian. That strikes me as a low effort Russian game.
Do you know about Star's power? Sparkly stars!
Gamma Sutra has an article here. NVIDIA GeForce Now cloud gaming service comes to iOS. Okay. I'm a little surprised that the NVIDIA GeForce Now service is still trying to do something, considering how terrible it was. OpenCritic has an article here. Google shares Stadia stats. Cities cites successful stint with successive surprises still in store. Seriously. Someone did that on purpose. Yeah, I'm also still surprised that Stadia is trying to do anything.
Glitter, glitter, glitter! Sparkly stars!
OpenCritic has another article. Project 007 apparently was the Project 19 that IO Interactive is going to be working on. They apparently are going to be making a James Bond game that is going to try and tell like a reintroduction to James Bond, which last I had heard, and maybe my information's incorrect, they were going to try and replace James Bond with a female. Now, inherently, this comes with a problem of the argument that the people that owned James Bond, the license holders, always said that James Bond was a British person, and probably they said British man. So if they are, for many, many years, they've been unwilling to hire a Hollywood actor to play James Bond, with the exception of British actors who then went to play as Hollywood movies, because Sean Connery certainly were in some Hollywood style movies, Western movies. He didn't stay completely in the UK. But they definitely weren't going to get Tom Cruise and let him be James Bond. They wouldn't let somebody like The Rock. He's the wrong body build for it. But there are probably a couple of Hollywood actors who would have done a good job playing James Bond if they had been considered. So now, if they are actually replacing him with a female character, that just it obviously smacks of wokeness, first and foremost, and people aren't going to like that. At least a decent percentage of people aren't going to like that. But it also then smacks of just odd decision making. But also, certainly the people making James Bond movies don't really know what to do with it. Ian Fleming was kind of the last, like once his books ran out and once he wasn't around to potentially give some level of feedback. And the James Bond in the books is, from what I understand, fairly different and probably not socially acceptable to at least SJWs these days. Like,
I surrender.
interesting. Interesting that we are getting wins while we're also having a horrible time with the internet. They did announce this, Skunk Ape Games did, that you can upgrade the Salmon Max to the Salmon Max remastered version. If you bought Salmon Max Season 1 on Steam Good Old Games or the Telltale Games. They have a 50% discount on PC version for everyone who already purchased the game through one of these 3 stores. Which, for Telltale Game Store, you have to put in your own email because that Telltale Game Store is obviously not in business. And that is cutting off a controversy before it happens somewhat. It still kind of sucks. You still, as someone who bought the game, as a consumer, feel like you should just get free upgrades for any remastered version regardless. But at the very least, in this case, you might be willing to give an exception in the fact that Telltale Games went out of business and Skunk Ape Games just bought the rights to them. So they've personally never, they've never actually made any money off of their investment. That being said, even seeing this 50% off deal, $10 is asking quite a lot for just a widescreen version and maybe slightly better graphics, but maybe none of the graphics actually have been touched at all. You literally could just hack the old version of the game, and that's what I did to get it to be widescreen. So, yeah. I don't think that Sam and Max Telltale games were particularly that good in the first place. They were worth playing once, but I don't think they're worth playing twice or purchasing twice.
What?
Let's see. Game of Sutra has an article here. There's a report that Activision Blizzard is laying off staff at the Asia Pacific offices. Another 100 employees reportedly being laid off. So, yeah. What else?
Darkness on this plane. Time to dance.
Next, we have a game on Steam called Freelance Trucker Insurance Fraud Edition, which seems to be kind of an asset flip crashing simulator. This idea of driving a trucker around and trying to crash into as many things might work. It is probably a gimmick that only works for a short amount of time, though. It probably should just be a side mission in a standard driving simulator, trucking simulator game. This is 809 English. 09 is a weird ending price tag, but okay.
Mana, come forth.
Spell boost.
How's
And then
this?
attack that and that. But yeah. Freelance Trucker, not polished enough to make it to the fall list. See, Tech Raptor has an article here. Persona 5 Scramble may get an English translation next year, retailers say. That seems fairly believable. Like, I don't see a reason why it wouldn't. And I guess at a certain level it might just be an argument about when and not if.
Do you know about Star's power?
I embrace all manner of spellcraft.
How's this?
I keep drawing cards when I really should.
This match is mine.
I really should be playing this 7 card to spell boost cards.
Come here, sparkly stars.
Alright, I can see the beginning of the end, and we've been going an hour and 42 minutes of terrible experience. Tech Raptor has an article here. Crossfire X release date delay pushed us back to 2021. I've never heard of Crossfire X. So, yeah, an announcement for a game that is being delayed that I've never seen or heard any announcements about before. Tech Raptor has an article here. Star Wars Squadrons B-Wing and TIE Defenders are arriving in a surprise update. Which, okay. Yeah, Squadrons needs all the ships in it. It makes no sense for it not to have all the ships.
Time to dance. Am I?
Here we have a game on Steam called At the Dead of Night, which looks like a horror game. It's slightly polished. Running around a hotel and perhaps ghost hunting. It might be an interesting idea. $12.74. That's what that game Phantasmagoria or whatever it is called. Phantasmagoria or whatever. That was the general premise of that, but it doesn't really work. I'm going to put this on the fall list. I would say, though, you could make an interesting, like, BioShock game where you're running around and hunting ghosts. Because that was half of what BioShock was, is that you would see ghosts. And they totally forgot about that in BioShock 2, really. And you'd hear audio logs that could have been phantom recordings of ghost things, but
Don't underestimate me.
if you are going to make like a game where you're ghost hunting, there seems like there should be some level of danger also, whether ghosts are driving creatures, monsters to appear, or driving animals crazy or humans crazy. Something along that line would be what I'd like to see. Something that could really let you do some first-person shooting for large sections of it, and potentially not have to spend the entire game looking down at a radar or listening to phantom voice phenomenon, or just chasing after shadows. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Link Light, which is a single screen Unity puzzle game by the looks of it. You just toggle things. Early access again for a puzzle game makes no sense. $7.99 makes no sense. English full audio, even that barely makes any sense. Do I have a follower that needs to be spell boosted? Yeah, if I spell boost this, that would be helpful. Here we have a TechRaptor article. Skull and Bones managing director removed under mysterious circumstances. Impossible for him to continue in this position. Following a leadership audit under mysterious circumstances. And see, mysterious circumstances, it makes it sound like it was like a Me Too situation, or perhaps he was arrested or thrown in jail for something that wasn't a Me Too situation. But also, since this is Ubisoft Singapore, yeah, probably is a Me Too thing, or just
Maybe, just maybe, this magic will help.
let's see. That there is, if it weren't Ubisoft, I would suspect, and there, I suppose there is still an option here, that Ubisoft is just getting rid of somebody they don't like. Like, almost certainly it has already happened, and almost certainly it will happen more and more, that we will start to see CEOs gotten rid of because of these kinds of accusations and these Me Too type accusation events. It certainly is what, like, Papa John is of Papa John's Pizza is still claiming, although yeah. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Hero Puzzle, which looks like one of these puzzle, like pin puzzles that have been banned, I believe, on YouTube, finally. So now they're going to try and come over to Steam. We've never seen a pin puzzle game advertised or shown whatsoever on Steam, and as soon as they get outlawed on YouTube and Google Play, you start to see them elsewhere. And see, all they were showing on the video was pin puzzles for the first 12 seconds, but the actual games a lot of times are completely different, and the pin puzzles are just supplemental. So it's $1.69. They're saying it's similar to the cave. I don't believe that for a second. English only. I don't look forward to seeing more pin puzzle games. Although it probably will be fairly easy to ignore pin puzzle games in the same way that I ignore jigsaw puzzle games and other content like that. Because those are going to be fairly easy to identify. Here we have Carnival Games on Steam, which this must be a re-release of an old game, because I know this existed before. 20 mini games. I don't think this was reviewed very well, and I think it always was overpriced. $40 is a ridiculous price here. I'm going to put this on the follow list just to see if it reviews well, but it would need a massive discount. I do want a game where you play some carnival games. That is definitely true. But this definitely looks like it was designed for the Kinect, and I believe it was a Kinect game. It wasn't a Wii game, I don't think originally, although maybe it was. Yeah, I'll put that on the follow list. We'll see how well it plays on PC and whether people think it's really worth that price. Let's see, next we have Zombie Derby Pixel Survival, which is custom cars running over zombies in a Roblox blocky style. I couldn't really call this an asset flip game, but there definitely are some flipped assets in it. But it is at least a unique gameplay style. $3.99, bunch of languages. Price doesn't sound terrible. Still don't think I'd want to play this, but yeah. Okay. Do this. And then
You don't stand a
do
chance.
this.
Your end has been foretold.
Okay. Hit that.
You like the cold?
Hit that.
You like the cold?
Hit that. This will probably be our last game. Let's see, here we have a game on Steam called Your Music Puzzle, which seems to break up your own music files into different version puzzle pieces that you could then remix. $8.09, English and Russian. This is clearly a low effort game. There might be an idea to breaking up music into different little plug and play sections, but yeah, I don't think this is it by any means. We have Shenmue 3 on Steam now, rated very positively. I seriously doubt I want to play any of the Shenmue games, though. Yeah, I'll put this on the follow list, but I think I probably shouldn't even bother to do that. Like, the Shenmue games are just too long for what they are. Too much grindiness. Here we have a game called Super Buckyball Tournament Preseason, which not sure what Buckyball is, but seems like it's a Rocket League with people instead of cars. Free to play, online player versus player, English and Chinese, so but it doesn't catch on in the West. Tech Raptor has an article here. Manga Gamer releases a Yuri, that's girl on girl lesbian romance type stories, title called Wanting Wings, and announces an otome game, young maiden game called F Me Royally. So yeah, here we have some screenshots. So 2 new Manga Gamer games. Manga Gamer are the games that tend to push the boundaries a little bit, and then also tend to complain when their games get censored or banned from Steam. Here we have a game on Steam called Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball 2021. This is a simulation game. $34.99 English only. That is ridiculously expensive. Let's see. Here we have a game called Diesel Punk Wars, which looks like it's build vehicles and then fight them, and seems like nothing else. Early access $13.49, bunch of languages. There might be a reason to put this on the fall list if you cared about vehicle games and crafting vehicles games. I don't, however, so I'm not going to. Here we have a game called El Dorado. Oh, no, El Dorado Creatures. Mispronounced that completely. Yeah, it looks like an RPG, player versus player, turn-based strategy, tactical RPG. I think maybe tactical RPGs are not in my book. They're saying it's close to Disgaea, which is tagged as a strategy RPG, and Disgaea is the game I just gave up trying to play. Let's see. Yeah, we already talked about the YouTube pin chats and YouTube gaming. Here we have a game on Steam called Kilta, which is an RPG game. The screenshots don't seem to be particularly unique. Looks like it might be an RPG game with too many characters. That's another problem with Disgaea, certainly, as you craft characters and you name them, which means you can have either a lot more than 10 or at least a little bit more than 10, where it would have made a lot more sense to recruit named characters and have only one healer and one mage, and those be named characters that you level up so you can grow with them during the game instead of potentially throwing away a character and replacing it with someone different. Yeah, I don't see anything in Kilta that's unique enough. TechRaptor has an article here. The canceled Sega VR emulated for the first time, which this is, I guess, a Sega VR headset that seems to be very old. So I wonder if the Virtual Boy itself maybe inspired Sega to try to make a VR headset. And maybe Nintendo made the Virtual Boy and continued to make the Virtual Boy because Sega was working on a competition. It certainly would have been fairly weird or somewhat bad for Nintendo if Sega had made a VR headset that really sold well and did something that Nintendo was completely unable to compete against. TechRaptor has an article here. Amazon Luna closed beta first impressions. Let's see. Don't let your streams be dreams. Getting started with Amazon Luna. Slightly underwhelming performance. An intriguing influence, interface, and business model, if I can read. And I'm losing the ability to read. So read that article yourself if you want to know more of that article. Here we have a game on Steam called Roball, which looks like a space flying shoot around game. And I don't see anything else that interests me. $2.39 English. The Epic Games Store is giving away The World Next Door, which is a game that came out, I think, barely a year ago, and Elite Dangerous. I definitely wanted to play The World Next Door, but it always seemed like it was a little overpriced for a unique, weird position placement game. And come to think of it, it might very well be similar to Disgaea, and in that case, not really something I would want to play. It's a somewhat interesting story too, where this girl goes to a monster world and gets trapped there and ends up having to fight a bunch of people. This was interesting announcement, but I don't know what it really means. Gamasutra has the article. The Twitch co-founder Kevin Lin is departing the company. Does that mean, after 13 years, does that mean he's going to go and start a competition to Twitch, which might be a good thing? Or is he the reason why Twitch is the way it is? And so if he was to go to make a competitor, would it be as bad, if not worse, than Twitch? It's questionable whether anyone who has ever worked at Twitch actually did a good job. Amazon now owns Twitch, so perhaps they are slowly getting rid of the people at the top to put more business suits in charge. And maybe that's what Twitch needs, although that usually isn't what most people want to hear. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Apotheker, which seems to be a simulation game where you're cooking basically a potion for each customer. Puzzle management game. Well, looking at the gameplay, it doesn't seem like you're under large time pressures. There might be something here. $9.99 English full audio. We'll put this on the fault list and see if we can get some reviews, because there might just be enough weirdness here and complication there to make that an actual strategy type game. Gamatsu has Fitness Boxing 2 Rhythm and Exercise demo now available, which I don't recall when Fitness Boxing 1 came out, but it doesn't feel like it was more than 2 years ago. Here we have a game on Steam called The Cherry Orchard, and it seems to be very nicely animated from another developer I've never heard of, and it still kind of feels like it's a visual novel, but a very different art style. $6.29 English and Russian. Put that on the follow list. That is really, really nicely animated for a visual novel, which really makes me wonder if this is a super short visual novel. It's a kinetic visual novel of about an hour, so yeah. At a certain point, it might as well just be fully voiced, and it seems like it is in English, or they're implying that it is, and then you should just call it an animated hour-long experience or TV show. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Stadia plans to bypass the App Store with a web app iOS launch, which frankly is how a lot of these services should plan to go. Just a nice HTML5 style page. No need to make custom apps for a lot of software, although Stadia's type of software, streaming software, probably would do better with a custom app. Here we have a game on Steam called Luna, which looks like it is a RPG Maker horror game. It is 89 cents, English, Korean, and Japanese. Nothing impressive there, other than the thumbnail, which you have to pretty much ignore those. Here we have a game on Steam called Dots, which seems like a timing game of simplistic nature. 1,220 levels. It will all be almost exactly the same. $2.84, English only. I guess I do have to applaud having that many levels, though. Like, I've definitely seen some low effort games try and sell themselves on less than 20 levels. Here we have Titanfall 1 on Steam, which I didn't realize Titanfall 1 was not on Steam. This is $7.99. Third-party DRM with Origin. Also requires an EA account and a third-party account, and you have to be an EA Play a subscription, but for $5 a month, you play it for free. So some of this is not the same. If you just buy it outright, you don't really have to deal with EA Plays, but you still probably need an EA account, or at least an Origin account, which is probably the same thing. I'm going to put this on the fall list just to make sure this game actually plays well. Titanfall 1 is the game I would want to play. I wouldn't want to have to jump to Titanfall 2, which I feel like Titanfall 2 has been on Steam since June 18th. So they definitely went backwards in that direction. I could also see never getting around to actually playing either Titanfall games and not really being too upset about it. Here we have a game called Alchemy Absorption Melody, which is a visual novel casual simulation game that isn't tagged with any nudity or sexual content, but you definitely can see that there's a succubus type character that is prevalent. $2.69 is fairly cheap. English only. 2 to 4 hours of reading. Revealing outfits and mild innuendo. See. Next we have Alice in Wonderland, a jigsaw puzzle tale, which kind of has a unique art style, and it seems like someone actually did custom draw at least 2 images, although from the screenshots I'm not sure there are more than 2 images, and this isn't a case of just doing the same puzzle. 12 beautiful illustrations, it says, for $2.39. There's a bundle here for $7.52. There's also a Little Prince jigsaw puzzle. I don't hate this idea, but can I justify putting this on the fall list? Can I justify playing a jigsaw puzzle game? No, I can't. Absolutely, I cannot. Yeah. I'm going to have to pass on this, but I will say, if you absolutely must play a digital jigsaw puzzle game, this is probably a decent path to go with this developer and this publisher. Let's see if we can maybe see if any of the other games are reviewed well. Positive. Positive. Very positive. Seems like this publisher is kind of going a different direction also. They started with My Little Prince, and now they're doing Alice in Wonderland. They also seem to publish some other games too. Alright, well that brings me to the Humble Bundle and back to Twitter. I doubt there's a new Humble Bundle available this Friday. Yep, not seeing any new Humble Bundles. And then let me just go through my Twitter feed and move, and then we can be done today. There's a Neo collection listing up at Amazon. Pre-orders aren't open yet, so Neo 1 and Neo 2. That makes sense. Marvel Avengers is 50% off, barely 2 months after its launch. There are 214.4 million video game players in the US, according to the ESA. We'll talk about. Let's see. Well, there's nothing else to talk about around that. Of course, those numbers are deceptive, certainly, because that includes like cell phone gamers and people who just play games when they're stuck on the toilet, on top of people who play a wide range of games or play AAA games. I don't think somebody who only plays Free Cell on their cell phone, for instance, really should be considered a gamer. In the same way that if somebody only played Free Cell with cards, I don't think you'd consider them a gamer in the real world, compared to somebody who owned like hundreds of board games or card games and played them on a weekly basis. Nintendo did send a cease and desist over a fan-run Smash tournament over an online play mod that they were using. TechRaptor has an article here. The PlayStation 5 UK launch was hindered due to the size of the product, according to Game Magazine. I suppose that's Game Magazine. But yeah, that would make a lot of sense. The size of the PlayStation 5 is a problem, and it's certainly something that they obviously could not fix, or didn't try that hard to fix. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a gift card. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.